First, though, I want to get an update on today's shooting from reporter Vanessa Pang of KVRR-TV in Fargo, North Dakota. Vanessa, give us the latest.
Well, what we do know right now is that a freshman student walked up into the front of his classroom and then shot himself in the head in front of 7 other students and a teacher. I mean, it was a very traumatic situation. The community of Fairmont, North Dakota is just under 400 people. And the freshman class really is only 8 students, including the shooter.
And the shooter's condition, I heard he was alert and awake, responsive when he was carted away. Did he just completely miss, or was there a head injury?
No word yet on that. Authorities are keeping pretty tight-lipped about the details in this case.
How about the other kids? How then the families and the community at large? How are people adjusting?
Everyone is shocked. They said it was a normal day. The shooter walked up to them, said hi. It was a completely normal day, so this is completely out of the blue for them. Shocking and devastating.
All right, thanks, Vanessa. I want to talk to Dawn because you've been through this. Can you help remind people what happened in your classroom?
Normal day. We were in a computer lab doing an English project, and midway through, Brandon got up and shot Larry. One of my other students.
How old are the kids? Now, we're talking about 9th graders in North Dakota.
We're talking about 8th graders, but about the same age in that they were
13,
14, 15 years old. So it would be the same age group.
Dr. Swanson, is there anything about that developmental age that makes their thinking about suicide and murder sort of more primitive and less attached to the reality of the consequences?
Well, I think it's shocking and terrifying for us because we don't expect that kids this young are going to be depressed or deal with life stressors, but it does make sense because a lot of the time we have depression and other things behind this, and this is the age where kids go into middle school, and it is a very stressful time negotiating classrooms, relationships, and all kinds of things that come with that.
The social pressures. And Dawn, I imagine the consequences on you still are with you. It was 4 years ago, right?
Completely. With me personally, but also with just the way the actual event in itself was handled prior, during, and after, and watching the students that were in that room recover as well, or try.
And you stopped having, you were unable to be a teacher for a while, right?
I pulled out of the classroom because I wasn't able to separate myself from the students and actually be a teacher at that point. But then when I decided to try and go back into the classroom, I wasn't really given the support from the school system to do it.
Are the kids given enough support to handle this kind of trauma?
Absolutely not.
Not
in any way, either by the school system or, I mean, I as a parent, I wouldn't have prepared my child to watch another one get shot in the head. Why would you ever even think of that?
And Dr. Swanson, what do you think they would need? I would think they'd be on the order of months and months and months of individual supportive therapies.
Well, this is the thing about therapy, is there is no replacing time. It takes time to heal. You're still dealing with this now. You could imagine how some of these kids are doing. Usually what happens is we bring in grief counselors, crisis counselors, and we go through the protocol. But after that, it's usually up to the parents and for each family to go out and get the help they need to recover.
So I think an important takeaway here today is obviously the first brush is we think, oh my God, the kids and how they're affected by this, but this affects the adults, the teachers, the parents, the entire community. I want to take a quick call. Let's go to Britt in Maine. Britt?
Hello, Dr. Drew.
Go ahead, Britt.
I lost my severely depressed 19-year-old son, Nick, to suicide in 2007, and I feel betrayed by the mental health system because of how it was handled and what had been done. Mm-hmm. He had been hospitalized after a serious suicide attempt, and 3 days later, I thought I was going to a treatment team meeting at the hospital to discuss his care. And when it turned out to be a discharge meeting, I was completely terrified for my son's safety.
That is an interesting point here. Maybe, David, you have a comment about this. I mean, the mental health system, both in terms of accessing or getting people into care, such as maybe your student or this kid that was in North Dakota, but then once they get to care, making sure they get sufficient care.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's very hard to do. And we both know as mental health professionals that when they're over the age of 18, they can very oftentimes figure a way to get out of the hospital.
Well, this is the story we did a couple nights ago where we had parents up here whose daughter disappeared after a hospitalization. She was in intensive daycare. They went on a 10-week search. They found her hanging in a tree, decaying. Yeah. I mean, and that's because she was discharged prematurely.
Yeah.
And parents couldn't do anything because she was 19.
Well, and the fact of the matter is when somebody is hell-bent on killing themselves, you know, this is something that you're not going to stop them from doing. Usually the types of suicides we're talking about here, like in the classroom setting, this is a cry for help. Oftentimes, though, you do find people who do want to kill themselves, and they will find a way out of the hospital, and they will find a way to commit the act.
Boys and guns, though, that seems to be the theme in a lot of these stories right now. And, you know, I think... And then the guns directed at themselves and done publicly. Are we seeing a new trend here in terms of what young males are getting into?
Well, we were talking about this before the show, and certainly I think a lot of times kids are looking for an audience. They're making a statement. You don't just show up at a classroom like this boy did today and hand somebody a note and shoot yourself. You're making a statement, and very oftentimes this might be an act of passion. Maybe they broke up. Very oftentimes it could be to show people in the class that did him wrong. He's going to make a statement to let them know that it wasn't okay.
And again, young teens have a magical way of thinking as though they're going to be around to watch the consequences of what they've done. And of course, they don't understand the finality